lovely people. It's Heather with Bell's Library, back with another video for you guys. Hope you guys are having a wonderful, fantastic day. Today we are going to be talking about some audiobooks that I have listened to that have been amazing and that I highly recommend. And so if you guys are an audiobook listener, or if you're wanting to get into them, these are some of the audiobooks that I just really think were done really well. Some of them have, multiple narrators or maybe some good background music or whatever it is. I don't know. I'm going to go into it. So I think I have like 7 recommendations for you guys. So let's go ahead and get into it. And let's start with Angie Thomas because I really enjoyed listening to her books on audio. We have The Hate U Give and also On the Come Up. I feel like On the Come Up was just, I think I listened to that one first. And this one is about Bray. Oh my gosh, I remembered a character name without looking it up. And she wants to follow in her dad's footsteps and become a famous rapper. And so listening to it on audio, you got to listen to some of the rap scenes like actually being rapped properly. And like, it was great. And the characters, like you could just envision them in your head. There was multiple narrators, and yeah, I loved it. I felt like they just really did a really good job with that one and The Hate U Give. I just feel like with On the Come Up, you had that more musical element to it, and so it just worked really well in that one. But both were really, really good audiobooks. I also would definitely recommend Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. Anything that I feel like is told in verse is really good in audiobook form, so you get like the proper intonations and stuff and how it's being told and said, and a lot of times the authors narrate those too. So I know Jason Reynolds did do this audiobook, and it is about this boy whose older brother ends up getting killed, and he's deciding basically to get into the elevator, and he's on his way down, and he's going to go avenge his brother who he thinks killed him. And on every floor, the elevator stops, and somebody from his past that's been killed gets on the elevator, and he's like, what is happening? And they tell him some kind of story as he goes down to the next floor. That, is a very impactful story. All of these ones I've talked about so far have been, but the audiobook was wonderful, and it's only like 45 minutes or something, I want to say. It's a pretty quick one, so definitely recommend if you just have a few minutes to do a quick audiobook. Oh, on the note of in verse, I listened to Clap When You Land by Acevedo recently, and it was really good, and this one is told in verse as well, so that one's awesome. I really want to get to The Poet X because that one she writes and she narrates all of her books, but that one has slam poetry in it, so I know it would be super good to listen to, so hopefully I'll be able to get to that one soon. But Elizabeth Acevedo's books are wonderful. She has such beautiful writing, and Clap When You Land is about these 2 sisters who they didn't know about each other. Their dad would fly back and forth between the Dominican Republic and New York. One is in each area, obviously, and then the dad ends up passing away in a plane crash, and the 2 of them find out about each other. And it's just a really good, like, character-driven book that the 2 of them get to kind of know each other and learn more about themselves, and it's a beautiful, beautiful story, and Elizabeth Acevedo does a really good job with her audiobooks, so I highly recommend her. So next up, let's talk about, let's just get through the ones that I don't have books for right now. So The Diviners. Oh my gosh, I've only read the first book in this series so far, but the audiobook was so good. Like, it had good creepy music going to it. It had this, so there's like this creepy song that's like sung throughout the whole thing. And I still can remember the song because it was just so creepy the way the narrator would sing it and be like, Naughty John does his work with his apron on. Like, that's in my brain for forever now. But yeah, I mean, the music and the atmosphere of this audiobook like made it just even better. And yeah, it was just a really good one. The Diviner series is set in the 1920s, and we are following our main character who ends up going to New York to stay with her uncle, and her uncle owns this museum that's about like the paranormal and different stuff. And it's like a historical fiction, but it's also got like some creepy paranormal mystery side to it. And I love the 1920s, so if you guys have more book recommendations that are set in the 1920s, I would really love that. I've been really wanting to read some more books set in that time period, so put them down below, please. Okay, let's move on. Next one we're going to talk about is Caraval. I loved the audiobook for this one. The writing in here is super lyrical and fantastical, and I really enjoy listening to audiobooks that are like that. And this book follows two sisters, Scarlett and Tella, and the two of them end up getting invited to Caraval, which is this big performance that is basically you go to this island and it's all set up on this island. It's all audience participation. They have to play this like game, and there's like a lot of really fun magic and intrigue, and I don't know, I just adored this. But the audiobook was really good as well. Like it just made it feel more magical in some way or somehow. It just loved it. Just loved it. So highly recommend that one. And then the last book we're going to talk about is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. This one's been around a lot because we just had October spooky season. A lot of people read this one. And then there's also the TV series that's out on Netflix, Haunting of Hill House. The two of them, like, I feel like if you go into this book and you've already watched the TV series and you think it's going to be like the TV series, you're going to be disappointed. But if you go into it realizing that they are two different stories and the TV series is loosely based off of the book, then I think you'll be more satisfied with it. I also haven't read it physically, so I don't know if maybe like the audiobook was actually what made this more enjoyable for me, but I really enjoyed the audiobook. I feel like it just gave these like perfect vibes where you're like, you almost felt like you were just being like seduced into the book and like, oh, everything's not so bad. Maybe it's like not a big deal, but there's just like this little undertone of just creep factor, just creeping its way in there and building up a little bit of suspense and that kind of thing. I also think you have to realize that this is a classic, and so it's going to be kind of different than books now, but I was totally happy and okay with that. Like, I felt like it was just done really well, and then at the end I just sat there and I was just like, what just happened? And it took me like a couple days of processing to realize how much I thoroughly loved and enjoyed this book. But the audiobook definitely was well done. Like, it had some really good music to it. I feel like the atmosphere music a lot of times in like creepier books is what really does it in an audiobook and makes me enjoy it more. Yeah, the characters just do a really good job. The narration, it was really good on the audiobook. And just remember, gonna be different from the TV series, which was also really awesome if you haven't watched it. Okay, that is all of my audiobook recommendations for you guys today. I hope you guys have a super wonderful, fantastic day, and I hope you guys will come back soon. So hit subscribe and like on this video, and don't forget to give me some 1920s book recommendations. Talk to you guys later.